Welcome back to the Spirit of Success. I'm your host, Yara, and on today's episode, we'll be talking about the Boxwood Learning Center, education, and nonprofit work. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with the inspiring, innovative, and accomplished Marie Thelusma-Chase. Mrs. Thelusma-Chase is a certified fundraising executive and transformational finance, education, and fundraising coach, and the CEO and co-founder of the Boxwood Learning Center. Mrs. Thelusma-Chase earned her bachelor's in computer science from the New Jersey Institute of Technology and holds several certifications and licenses, including certification in fundraising and licenses in financial and insurance industries. She has also completed several trainings in program development and outcome management. Further, Mrs. Thelusma-Chase is an author and has written various life lesson books, with the newest one being titled You Are Not Alone. Combining her skills and education with her passion to serve and help youth achieve their best, Mrs. Thelusma-Chase has dedicated her time and career to working with students and communities to help them value themselves, complete their education, and accomplish their dreams. Well, Mrs. Thelusma-Chase, how are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, and it's wonderful having you here today, and I'm looking forward to learning more about the work that you do and the conversation we're about to have. So we'd love to know what got you interested in nonprofit work and what experiences or values inspired you to create the Boxwood Learning Center.
I feel like it was a calling as a teenager to help empower the poor. So when I think 2001, I left the IT world and started a grant writing company. And that eventually I transitioned to, helping young people. So I think after 15 years of raising money, millions of dollars for nonprofit organizations, I realized that most of the funding went to the executives. It didn't really go to the kids. And I wanted something different. I actually, when I went into the nonprofit world, I was just very naive. I thought, oh, I'm just gonna raise money and everything is gonna be right with the world. But people have their own motives, Their motives is their paychecks. And I didn't want that. I wanted Boxwood Learning Center to be the opposite of that. Like today, I was just thinking about a young man who I worked with about 15 years ago. As a consultant, as a grant writer, when the funds would come for the nonprofit, I would set up the programs for them. And I set up the amazing summer programs, hired the staff, trained them, but there's an end to all that. So there was one program where the kids in it were on electronic monitoring. That means house arrest. House arrest. And a lot of the kids were in foster care. And I had this one kid who was recruiting other kids from the gang to join my summer program. The kids that we work with are the ones that society have kind of given up on, the parents have given up on. I've had so many parents who said, I wish that child was dead, or I don't want them. Like if they're immigrants, they refuse to renew their green cards. So these are the type of kids that I work with, but they don't go back to prison. They don't go back to prison. They don't go back and they're not creating havoc in society. So that's the value that we bring is I want Boxwood Learning Center along with our board to be a community of support for young people who are on the streets, for teen parents who have multiple jobs. It gives them, as being part of a community, it gives them like hope. And that's the value I've added that Boxwood Learning Center brings.
Wow, that is really amazing to see the work that Boxwood is doing, the goal of it. And to hear your story about how you got into it and trying to make it so that your nonprofit really brings the money and the value to the kids to be able to help them. And so, from that, you touched on this a little bit, but how have your values impacted and influenced your approach to the work that you do and the education that your center offers to youth?
Again, personal experience. I got left back when I was in 7th grade. So since then, I was like on a journey to make sure that no one ever gets left behind. I mean, I got put in the rightful grade, but because I'm an immigrant to the United States, My parents didn't have their diploma, so they couldn't really guide me the way I needed. So I had to like be my own parent, through high school and be my own advocate. And I think that's like the seed. Had I not gone through that, I wouldn't have my husband and I wouldn't have opened Boxwood. So I think what we bring is everybody of all the youth. They were called champions. So we have youth who have like IEPs, who have different various physiological disorders, mental health issues. And one of my youth, his grandfather who now passed, calls him champion. So his mother was very tearful when I called him like champion. He's like, wait a minute, that's the name that his grandfather calls him. So no matter if they're homeless, if they're suffering from depression, it's like they're all called champions. We don't even address people with like gender. It's like, I don't care what gender you are a champion. So it's kind of like a lot of the kids call me a soul coach because they're like, you're just you connect with my soul. Because I say, like soul doesn't have a gender, political background, doesn't have religion. It's just you and I talking, connecting, and me empathizing. So I think like what we bring is empathy, and then strength based, where we're looking at champion and look at what do you have? What are your inner assets? When he came to us, he was in a broken place. I mean, when he got his diploma, he got his high school diploma in 2 months through our program. And we got emails from state officials because that's how popular he was in a negative way. And we got, emails from like New Jersey officials, like, what? That kid finished? And when they saw his high school, we do cap and gown, pictures. When they saw it, they're like, what? This is the same kid? Of course it's the same kid. He's the champion. But we just bring that empathy. We look at how they learn. So our learning style is very fluid. Every child learn differently. Some kids are kinesthetic learners, some are visual, some are interpersonal, and some of them have like learning challenges. So I look at their strength. So it's not like, speaking down on them, but it's like, what do they know and how can I use what they know to teach something new? So looking at how kids learn and looking at, them, addressing them, all of them as superstars or champions. So there's no hierarchy. Everybody's on the same level and everybody has their own learning path. What I don't like about traditional school, you have my child, my 9-year-old, he's homeschooled. So by the time he's 12, he'll know all the information to finish high school. So why does he have to go 4 years of school? So about what everybody has a learning pathway. She finished in 3 months. Right now, she's at Morgan State University. Wow. When she came, she dropped out of alternative high school. She was in juvenile probation and she was just angry. She was an angry person. And when now she's in historically Black college. And so it's like in 3 months. How is that possible? But she wanted to finish in 3 months. We're like, okay, let's put together a plan to get you in and out and let's help you get into your field of interest. So the other piece that we have, which is the fourth one, we empathy. Everybody's a champion. Everybody learns differently. And the fourth one is talking to them about high school is not the end. It's a means to an end, helping them to have career assessment, figuring out based on their interests, what role are you going to play in this world? And then the fifth one is to provide support to age 25.
You really hit on a super important idea that every kid is a noble being. Every kid has such an amazing soul to them. And if fostered and nurtured in the correct way, that
right.
You're really taking that and saying, you are more than that. You're more than what people are seeing, and you are more than what you are letting on. And you're really giving them that opportunity to be the best that they can be and really show who they are. The most important thing is they have someone like you who really cares for them. Seeing the importance that you place on really seeing each kid as the amazing person they are, that maybe they just haven't gotten to the point that they can show it, or they haven't been taught how they can show it. And that's the role of Boxwood. I think that's really amazing. And so, in addition to Boxwood Learning Center, you mentioned some of your previous experiences, and one of them that you currently still do and that you worked more with previously is being a certified fundraising executive. So, could you tell us a little bit about what a certified fundraising executive does and what that looks like?
Okay, what a certified fundraising is someone who has a minimum of 5 years experience raising money in the public sector. The acronym for it is CFRE. It's an international certification, uh, and not too many people hold that. I think in New Jersey is about 150 of us. So it's very difficult to maintain because every 3 years you have to renew it. You have to go to school. You have to take classes. You have to show your ability to continue to raise money, and you also have to. They have a level of principles that you have to follow. Honesty and integrity are some of the principles. CFREs are found everywhere, doing fundraising at a university level, hospital, wherever there's like a public center or philanthropy, you're gonna find like a CFR.
Getting to the big question of our show, what does success mean to you, and how has this definition of success evolved throughout your life and career?
One of the training that I do with young people is to help them create like a succinct life purpose statement. My life purpose is to inspire, right? Inspire someone, and the transformation is not up to me. So I said, I leave it to God or higher power to continue with that transformation. It has nothing to do with me. That's why when young people, they credit me or say thank you, I'm like, I didn't do anything. All I did was inspire you. So I think for me, before success was, oh, I'm going to start this, I'm going to start this program, I'm going to do this. This kind of like works of my hand. That was like my definition. And for the last over 20 years now, it's evolved into like, if I can sow a seed into like that one person today, that's success. I have one youth who was formerly incarcerated, where I get stories where he saved a couple people from committing suicide, or he used his paycheck to pay for someone's rehab. So I feel like if the world is a better place just by planting that one seed, that's success.
Thank you for sharing that with us. So, we've talked a lot about what makes Boxwood a special place, you guys' mission, what you do. And so, from your experience working with kids and creating an educational center, what changes would you suggest need to be made in the current school system to help foster things like unity, helping all kids to succeed and stay in school, helping them feel valued, seeing value in themselves, and helping them from staying away from engaging in negative behaviors?
I mean, I can sum up like all of that is seeing them as champions. Because if you're a champion, you're not engaged in negative behavior. Or there's a consciousness now. There's a level of expectation. If I say, Yara, you're a superstar. So, and I actually have the young people, like, I have a list when you come in the center of what we expect of those who produce music. You have to produce music where you're not killing people or you're not attacking other people, and that you're thinking about your brand. So now that you signed this, there's an accountability. So I think children should be treated as superstars, and they should be treated as if they're Prince Charles' grandchildren, and that there's a video camera where the whole United Kingdom is like watching you as you handle these children. They're precious, and I think that's what I would recommend for the school system is like you're handling Prince Charles, not literally, but uh, figuratively, children, and they are connected to the royal crown. So you mess up, that's your life. I think teachers would treat children differently if they held that mindset, because that's the mindset I hold to. So that's what I would recommend. Treat them better than your own children.
Yeah, I think, like you said, the school system really needs to see kids as the precious things that they are, as the precious
Yeah.
beings that they are. And that would make such a big difference in, like you said, kids staying in school, kids really finding that they have that value themselves and to be able to stand up for that value that they have. And it would foster just such a more positive school atmosphere. I think a lot of kids can agree, especially public school, there isn't much of that care for students, from administrators, from people there. And then that trickles down into the student body and how they see themselves
Right.
and how they treat each other. And that really sets the tone for what the school environment is going to be like. So if people that are working with kids are really letting them know, and this goes for all ages, it doesn't just stop at like elementary school or in middle school, it should continue all the way through, that they are precious people. I think it would make such a world of a difference for everybody to feel like they belong and that they matter and to see hope for themselves in the future. Would you not agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And also there should be consequences, I don't think like you have an education system that like rewards um I wouldn't say bad behavior, but inappropriate approaches to teaching, inappropriate treatment of children. So because if they say a teacher is tenured, they're untouchable. So I think teachers should be tenured based on their performance.
No, I completely agree. So, from your experience working with youth, what do you think is the role of youth in service in today's society, and what do you think their outlook is on it?
We won't have a society without them. They don't have a future. So their role and what they're going to do a lot of times is going to be different. Like if I want my son's role to be a caretaker for when I'm 90, it's like, what am I sowing into him so that he can fulfill that role? If I want him to be, let's say, president of his own company, his work, he's actually, that's his bucket list to start his own company. So I have to plant the seed. I have to invest in him. So we have no society if we don't invest in them. And they can't play the role. They will play a role,
Mhm.
but we need to be deliberate about the role they're going to play. Like I'm deliberate every day in working with about 20 champions. Like, what role? Because I want to be like, oh, I want you to be able to walk down the street in the neighborhoods that I impact and know that you're going to be safe. Because the champion that you're bumping into, he's not going to rob you. He's actually going to say, how are you? And they do that. When someone they come back, like, I saw an accident and I rushed over there to see if that person okay. And I gave them my phone, to use. And I'm like, that is a different person. Right. So because I have to be deliberate about the role like of leadership, the role of ownership. Just because it wasn't you who crashed the car, that doesn't mean you don't own that situation because you witnessed it. So the role of responsibility, they're not going to take that role if as adults in the society, we don't create strategic moves, right? Whether it's mentoring program, alternative education, mental health programs, so that they can be better human beings.
No, I really like how you put the idea that they will play a role, but we have to be deliberate with what that role is. And I think
Mhm.
in the grand conversation of, youth are change makers, a lot of society says, youth, their role is to change the world and to make a difference. But
It's
without
laughable.
Hmm?
I said it's laughable because how are they going to make a change when you don't set it up for them?
Exactly. That's what I was just gonna say. If society doesn't invest in them, if the older generation doesn't invest in them, serve as role models, serve as guides, serve as people to foster their desires to make a difference, they're not going to be able to act on that. And so I think
You're
that's
going to get the opposite.
exactly. I think that's a part that society fails to see at times. And you hear from some youth, oh, it's a big pressure that society thinks that we're supposed to change the world. But if youth don't get support to be able to put what they're thinking into action, then it's never going to happen. And like you said, it can even turn into the opposite thing when they get
It's the
discouraged.
opposite because even in the local In 2021, there were like over 400 juvenile arrests, and most of the arrests were for like gun charges.
Mm.
So here's a county where the dynamics are going to shift. Because I've been there for over 20 years. The kids used to get on probation for like, like breaking curfew or little stuff, but now it's human or person's crime, a crime against another person. So when we're not strategic about the role they play, you're going to create an unsafe environment for your own self,
Mm-hmm.
for your own self, for your own children.
Exactly.
But things are getting worse, and that's why a lot of time with the opioid issues, when I get to I work with a lot of young people who have opioid addiction, and they committed a crime. They said, Miss Ray, I don't remember committing that crime. I said, why don't you? Because I was high. So it's situations with gun violence, we're going to see an increase in it because we're not deliberate. Serve some of the hottest cities. So but we only get $50,000 a year to serve some of your quote unquote criminals. But if you really wanted the help, they spent about maybe $2 million to lock up the same number of kids, 20 kids, but 50,000 for their education and transformation. It's
Yeah.
like,
So
you know,
the wrong focus in where things should be allocated, where resources should be allocated to really make that difference. The difference is not going to be made in them getting locked up. It's in them
yeah,
getting proper education, whether it's after that period or before that even gets to that point, to make sure that they don't end up in those spaces. And I think one thing that we're hitting on is that this idea of if they're not supported to really make a positive difference, they're going to get disgruntled, they're going to get frustrated with, society
yeah,
going to change, and
that's what's happening.
no one values me enough to, help put my idea into work. So what happens? They then turn to negative things and other
Yeah,
ways to
absolutely.
find a solution, right? And so, yeah, I think it really just comes down to they need that support, like you mentioned, and they need that deliberate guidance, and that deliberation given to their role rather than just putting it out there and telling them, do whatever you want with it, but we're not going to be there for you to help
Yeah.
guide you in it.
No, we're going to be there. We're going to keep you incarcerated. We're going to create a pipeline so that when you fall out of line, then you're going to be behind bars. And then a
Trajectory
lot of,
continues.
yeah, and then 25% of the youth that the Boxwood serves are teen parents. So when they're arrested, who watches that child?
Yeah.
So who's going to define the role that child is going to take since their teen parent is incarcerated?
Yeah. Based on your own experiences, what we've talked about, what advice would you give to youth who don't have resources such as these organizations or programs around them? So, if they don't have resources like the Boxwood Learning Center, who may be struggling to complete school or feel undervalued, um, how would you suggest that they overcome these struggles, or who can they reach out to?
Oh, well, I like my 9-year-old. He's such a role model for me. He actually figured out how to code. And one time I came home, he showed me like a Pac-Man game he coded. And I said, oh, how did you figure that out? He's like, oh, I Googled it. And then come to find out, he found a coding program on MIT.edu. And I'm like, does he know like that's MIT, like Massachusetts Institute of Technology? And then he's at a very high level of coding, like, and gaming. So I said, honey, should I get you a tutor? He's like, no, I'll just YouTube it and I'll figure out like what to do. And he's at a place where he's doing his own like classes where other kids come and learn coding through him. He's only 9. And then parents call him about parental guides for like the games. And he's very like patient. So I use my son as the example. He's teaching himself so many programming through YouTube, through the internet. And that's the number one advice is take control of your education. We no longer live in a society where you're supposed to teach me. My parents supposed to. That is, the days of that is long gone. you have to become your own lifelong teacher. And then the other thing I would do is, look at the community that you at and see who's providing like free GED classes. The good thing with the GED is you can take it from home. You don't have to like bus it. A lot of the programs at local universities, they offer the GED classes on Zoom. So that's what I would, recommend for someone who lives in the US.
So really look out into the greater community, see what you can find, and really look inward and find that support in yourself. Because at times,
Mhm.
whether it's in life or in certain situations, you may find that you don't have anybody else that either understands you as well as you do yourself, or can understand what you're going through, or that you can find a safe space, unfortunately, to find somebody who can be a support to you. And so turning and seeing, what is it that I want to accomplish? What do I want my future to look like? How can I be an advocate for myself, like Mrs. Thelusma-Chase was talking about in her own previous experiences as a youth, can really be helpful in getting you through that.
And the other thing is our number. I've had people call me and I can coach them through it. A lot of our GD classes are on Zoom. So if someone feels like, I've tried all of that, definitely our website is boxwoodnj.org. By the way, our website is managed by our graduates. So there is a contact link there, and I know it works.
And we'll be sure to list all of that information at
Okay.
the end of the episode on the screen as well in the description. So be sure to check all of that out. But from your experience as someone founding one of these centers, what would you say about how people can establish places and programs like these around the US? And are you thinking of expanding this initiative around the US, creating like branches of it elsewhere?
How is a really profound question. Um, it's not easy to run an educational program or a nonprofit organization. I would start with a nonprofit training center in your state. Every state, for the most part, has one. So get linked to that to get the training and the know-how to start one. So that's the first thing. And then the other thing is to partner with groups, whether it's in your locality or outside your locality that's doing it. Partner as a volunteer, partner as someone shadowing. If I could be of help, definitely reach out. And I'm really good as a transformative coach to really help people to look at their inner assets, to be able to realize their dreams. So I hope that, tip helps. The other piece, as far as us expanding throughout the US, that was a dream of mine to provide this type of help throughout on the international level. So on the international level, we're partnering with a group in Liberia. It's an orphanage. And again, one of our graduates built their website and videos. So I use our graduates to the nth degree to give back to the world of education. So we can partner with an existing group, to look at local funding for their program, to share curriculum, to share ideas. We have, certified teachers on our staff. We have people with curriculum background who can, help. I like to share. I think it's one thing you can't take with you is, I guess, one thing you can take with you is the knowledge. You can't take the money with you, but you can't take the knowledge, right? So
Yeah.
I want to share as much knowledge as possible, as long as, I'm here on this earth.
Well, I'm sure people appreciate that, and that's a very good tip for people to get started. Um, what advice would you give to professionals and adults working in education and social work fields, for tangible ways that they can take the first step into fostering caring, nurturing, and positive environments for students and youth? So I know we talked about the traits that they should have, but what are some exercises, activities, things that they can do to actually get started on that path?
Well, one advice I give to professionals on fostering environment of education and care. I remember wow, about 15 years ago, I went through this training by Dr. Howard Gardner. Gardner is Gardner. And it's not that kids are smart, it's how they are smart. You have to figure out how your student is smart. Most in the US education system, it's created for logical and linguistic learners, kids who are going to do well in the SAT. It's created, the system is created for that. So you have to go outside of that because most of the students you're going to come across are not logical learners. So I would have a tutoring session where me and the student were cooking, like we're moving around. So he's learning without even thinking about it. Or I would have a session where I'm helping one youth with a project, and then I would assign him to tutor the one who needs to be advanced. So that's interpersonal learning. So it's figuring out, okay, this person likes to give. That means they want to go outside of themselves, So I'm going to have them do some interpersonal peer tutoring. So learn how kids learn. So, and then being empathetic, understand your student. I could tell when they high, when they come in, I'm like, okay, so you had something strong today, didn't you? So really figuring out, okay, if they're under the influence, because marijuana is legal in a lot of states. So a lot of our young people are experimenting. So this is a very difficult times for educators because some school districts don't allow you to ask students certain questions, evasive questions. So, but if you understand in your mind, like, okay, this person is under the influence, what are the policies of the school? How can I still reach him while working within the framework of the school policies?
Very, very good advice. Thank you for sharing that. And I think you mentioned Gardner's 8 intelligences, and that is something so important to understand because, like you said, we tend to approach intelligence from one perspective, which is just logical learning, book smarts, really. But in Gardner's model of 8 intelligences, there's way more than that. And
Yeah,
we're each gifted in different areas of it, there's
yeah,
different combinations of it. And being able to understand that, like you said, can really be the step to being able to foster that education and
right.
allow people to flourish in whatever it is that they want and learn the best that they can through those intelligence.
Yes.
I'm sure people are wondering as we've gotten to this part of the show, but how can people support or contribute to Boxwood?
There's several ways people can support where it's on our website, but one of the newest ways that we're working on right now is to help our teen parents fulfill their bucket list. Would you mind if I read a text message?
No, go
Okay. So my eyes, okay, don't fail me now.
ahead.
I use a lot of sense of humor when I'm with young people. So our session, even if it's over an hour, it's just fun. This is from a teenager who's raising a 3-year-old at 17. She says, Miss Marine, it is that I might be a teenager in age, but mentally, I really can't be a teenager. It might sound like an excuse, but it's really not. Money-wise, my family and I haven't been good for a while now. And I'm the only one who could put food on my son's plate. I'm trying so hard to keep my head up and keep going. So I reached out to her and I said, my job is to make sure you have a teenage year, that you're a mother and you have 2 full-time jobs and you come to Boxwood for your GED. And we're going to spend 2 hours a month having fun. So I'm taking her shopping next week at a local Goodwill. So we're looking for people to fulfill the bucket list of our teen parents. We have a teen dad who at 18 has custody of his 2-year-old, and he has full custody because the mother of the child, she's in her late 20s, and he had heart enough, even though of that situation, inappropriate situation, he still stood up. And right now he has medical challenges as well, and he comes to Boxwood. So we want to be able to help our teen parents fulfill their bucket list so that they can they too need a future. They too need to have teenage memories, you know, of
Yeah.
going to the beach, of playing soccer, whatever. So that's the newest way that we're asking people in the community to sponsor a bucket list. And our website, we have a monthly donation that starts at $5 a month. Anything that people can provide, um, we'll be grateful. So on our website, boxwoodnj.org, there's a donate link where people can go get involved as a monthly donor, $5 and above, or even put us as your charity on Amazon Smile. Amazon gives us 5% of the sales.
Well, no, thank you for sharing those. And to learn more about how you can contribute to either one of the ways that Mrs. Thelusma-Chase shared right now, or other ways that Boxwood has for you to get involved, check out the link on the screen, and as well as in the description to learn more about that. But it's been so wonderful talking with you. But before our episode ends, do you have any additional words of encouragement or advice you'd like to share with our audience?
Get involved. You know, if you see a young person, you know, especially if it's a neighbor, ask them for their name. Don't be, you know, it's like, don't be invisible because you're not, you know, get involved. That's my advice.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and thank you so very much for your time and insight today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms.
Of
Yara. Thank
course. And below, you can find the ways that we discussed how you can help and support the Boxwood Learning Center. And additionally, Mrs. Thelusma-Chase has been working on some upcoming releases and projects, including an upcoming life lessons book entitled You Are Not Alone and her program called YouthRising.World. Would you like to share more about these projects with us?
Yes, You're Not Alone. It's a devotional book on all of the miracles that I've seen in helping people. They were period, the house that I live in now. I left my six-figure job, paying job, 5 years ago. And because I felt like there was a calling, an internal, to help kids who are on the streets involve the courts. So I asked my boss to lay me off. So You're Not Alone captures the blessings when you help others. You know, we are unfulfilled when we don't help others. And then so the Youth Rising That World is really like Youth Rising. That's the name, Youth Rising. So most of the students that involved in this project, again, dropped out of school, were homeless, were dealers, were all types of things. But right now they're working on their original works. They're publishing their books. They're writing new songs that are positive and not destructive. So a lot of their songs are on the Youth Rising. And they're also becoming bloggers. And also, they also run their own podcast. So we have like we started a few months ago. We have a few episodes where I have a dialogue with the youth.
I love that. Those are really amazing. And so you guys should be sure to check those out. And if you'd like to learn more about these projects and stay up to date with all of Mrs. Thelusma-Chase's work and Boxwood's work, be sure to follow her and her organization on
Yes.
YouTube at Boxwood Champs and on Facebook at Boxwood Learning Center, and visit their website at www.boxwoodnj.org.
And
Well,
also youthrising.world, not
yes,
.com, youthrising.world.
.org. Well, thank you again so much for your time today, Mrs. Thelusma-Chase.
Thank you. This was fun.
I'm so glad to hear
We
that.
should do this every Sunday.
Of
Just
course,
kidding.
why not? This is a great conversation. And as always, thank you all for listening.
Thank
I'll be
you.
back with more episodes soon, so be sure to subscribe, follow, and like the podcast on its various platforms, including YouTube, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, to be notified each time a new episode is posted. If you want to get the latest updates about the show, announcements, and submit questions that you'd like me to consider to talk about on the show, follow us on Instagram at spirit-of.success and Facebook at spirit-of.success9, and consider joining our Facebook group at the Spirit of Success. Until next time, I'm your host, Yara, and don't forget to continue challenging yourself and working to make your spirit soar to new heights.
Yes.
Bye!